Part 51. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 501. FemaleProtagonist said, I happened to be there when the blackmail letter was delivered last time, and I smelled a faint floral fragrance on the letter. Well, I'm actually not sure, it would scare me if something like this happened. Died. FemaleProtagonist sighed, then patted Gu's mother on the shoulder lightly, and persuaded, Xin, you have to take care of your health, the second young master is still waiting for us to save him, you can't collapse first. The police officer on the side said, the paper used by the kidnappers to write the blackmail letter is impossible to specially choose the floral scent. How did the floral scent get on it? FemaleProtagonist, are you sure? Can you smell it again? What kind of floral scent is it? After hearing this, Mother Gu looked at FemaleProtagonist with tears in her eyes. Yes, isn't your husband running a perfume company? You are very sensitive to all kinds of fragrances, maybe this is a clue. Lan Kexin's father used to be a researcher in a perfume company. Later, he raised an investment and founded his own perfume brand, becoming a celebrity. Being close to Zhu Jechi, FemaleProtagonist's understanding of various fragrance types is also different from ordinary people. The blackmail letter was handed to FemaleProtagonist intact, and FemaleProtagonist sniffed it intently, with a look of embarrassment on her face. It's been 3 days, and the scent seems to have evaporated a lot. I can't smell it. Gu's mother felt that the last ray of hope had been destroyed, and she burst into tears. My son. Gu Liang and the police officer also showed disappointment. FemaleProtagonist said again, why don't you let Kexin try it? She inherited her father's sharp nose, and now she will smell the new products developed by her father first. Mother Gu hurriedly said, where is Kexin now? Hurry up and bring Miss Lan over here. As she spoke, she wanted to find a servant. Although Gu Liang had ordered Lan Kexin not to come to the door, but now that this happened, he would naturally not disregard his brother's safety, so he immediately sent someone to invite Lan Kexin to come over. Lan Kexin will arrive soon. Different from the usual heavy makeup, today she has a clean face and no jewelry on her body. It is obvious that she came here before she had time to dress up. As soon as Gu's mother saw Lan Kexin, she held her hand tightly. My good boy, something happened to your second brother, now I'm relying on you. Lan Kexin is only 2 years younger than Gu Yan, and they grew up together. When they were young, they would follow Gu Yan and call him second brother every day. Auntie, my mother has already told me, don't worry, second young master will be fine, Lan Kexin said. Gu Liang handed her the blackmail letter, but Lan Kexin didn't rush to accept it. She lowered her head and said, young master Gu, I'm going to wash my hands. Even the faint smell of body odor and sweat on the hands can affect the judgment of the sense of smell. Lan Kexin soaked her hands in clean water first, and after washing, she waited for her hands to dry naturally before picking up the blackmail letter from the table with extreme caution. Put it on your nose and sniff it gently. Then she put it down, waited for a while, picked it up again, and sniffed lightly repeatedly. When Lan Kexin was doing these things, the others held their breath, not daring to disturb her, and not daring to get too close. FemaleProtagonist explained to Gu's mother at the side, smell is the most complicated. Even a little ingredient will have a subversive impact on the fragrance. If you encounter an easily confused smell, you must try it in stages so that you can carefully distinguish it. Subtle differences. Gu's mother nodded half understanding. She stared at Lan Kexin urgently, hoping that Lan Kexin could smell something. Lan Kexin lived up to everyone's expectations. After putting down the blackmail letter for the last time, she said with a relaxed expression, it's Xinghua. Xinghua, Gu's mother looked at Gu Liang eagerly, hurry up and send someone to look for it. Go look for it where there are apricot flowers. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 502. Gu Liang glanced at Lan Kexin suspiciously, said nothing, and called Tongwu to come over immediately. Kexin, good boy, what happened last time was Gu Liang's fault. Mother Gu held Lan Kexin's hand gratefully and said, when your second brother is rescued, I will ask him to apologize to you. Lan Kexin was ecstatic in her heart and almost laughed, but she still tried her best to maintain a worried expression on her face, saying, I hope I can help, don't make the second young master suffer too much. How could the future head of the Gu family apologize to a woman? Gu's mother was also dizzy, unable to speak out of her head. But Lan Kexin and Mrs. Lan didn't take it seriously, their goal has been achieved, and both mother and daughter are in a good mood. After Tongwu came, he said that there are many places with apricot blossoms in Xinjiang City, not only in a few parks, but also in the green belts of residential areas, and those bungalows with gardens, it is even more impossible to count. Lan Kexin said, the scent of apricot blossoms is very faint. The strong scent of apricot blossoms attached to this blackmail letter shows that there must be a large apricot blossom forest planted in the location. For Xingguolan, it is much easier to screen. They immediately found Xingnan village. Xingnan village is full of apricot flowers on the mountain and below. Once the flowers bloom, it is very spectacular. Tongwu went and returned, and after returning, he whispered a few words to Gu Liang, and Gu Liang's expression moved slightly. Gu's mother couldn't hear what they said, and she was anxious, and asked, how did the investigation go? Did you find the second young master? Gu Liang's eyes glanced at Lan Kexin coldly, with no expression on his face. He said, I'm in Xingnan village. Then what are you waiting for? Go and pick him up. Gu's mother couldn't wait to get up, and went out without even putting on her coat, and asked Gu Liang, is your brother okay? Did the kidnappers catch him? Did they catch him, hit your brother? Gu Liang didn't make a sound, and walked out with heavy steps. Gu's mother only thought that he was also in a hurry, and didn't notice anything unusual. The Gu family all got into the car and went to Xingnan village. Mrs. Lan and Lan Kexin also got into the car and went with Gu's mother. A group of people hurried to Xingnan village and found a farmhouse. Gu Liang's subordinates said that Gu Shao was inside. Lan Kexin could almost imagine Gu Yan's broken leg and blindness, and Mu Zi's embarrassing end with no clothes on. She was both excited and nervous, and her heart was pounding. She worked hard to build up her emotions, and was going to hug Gu Yan and cry bitterly as soon as she entered. But when she really walked in, she saw Gu Yan leaning against the wooden door frame smoking a cigarette. His clothes were a little wrinkled, but his expression was leisurely and lazy. He didn't look like a victim at all. Lan Kexin was stunned. What happened? She subconsciously looked at her mother, her eyes seemed to be asking, how could this be? Why is Gu Yan okay? Mrs. Ian's face turned pale, and she was also confused. Didn't you agree to break your legs and blind your eyes? Why is second young master Gu safe and sound? And Mu Zi? Where did Mu Zi go? What went wrong? Did the kidnappers suddenly change their minds and don't want to leave the 2 million? Mrs. Lan and Lan Kexin felt turbulent in their hearts. Both of them couldn't believe it. How could such a well-planned situation turn out like this? At this time, Gu Yan also saw Lan Kexin. He sneered, so it's really you, Lan Kexin, you are really ruthless. Lan Kexin stood stiffly on the spot, staring at Gu Yan in a daze. The March sun shone on her body, but she felt like an ice cone piercing her bone, making her shiver with cold. Everyone looked at her. Seeing that her son was fine, Gu's mother was about to hug Gu Yan and cry for a while, but when she heard him say this, her tears burst into tears, and she looked at Gu Yan in astonishment. Xiao Yan, what do you mean by that? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 503. Guyan spat, and said, Mom. Lan Kexin manipulated this incident before and after. Now that she has a bad reputation, she can't marry a wealthy family, so she put the idea on me and let the kidnappers mess with me, become a useless person, and then marry into the Gu family in the name of taking care of me. Guyan looked at Lan Kexin, shook his head with a sneer. Kexin, I have treated you well, but you actually hurt me like this. Let me tell you, even if I am really crippled one day, I will never marry a poisonous woman like you, Scorpion woman. Mother Gu was shocked. She turned her neck stiffly, and turned to look at Lan Kexin. On Lan Kexin's clean face, there is a bit of the shadow of her best friend when she was young. Standing gracefully under the sun, she is graceful and beautiful, like a well-behaved and innocent girl, but who would have imagined that this girl's heart is so vicious? Bitch, Mother Gu stepped forward and slapped Lan Kexin hard. I treat you like a goddaughter, but you want to kill my son. Lan Kexin didn't stand still, staggered 2 steps, and was steadied by Mrs. Lan behind her. Mrs. Lan was terrified, and hurriedly said, Second young master. Don't talk nonsense, how could my Kexin do such a thing? Maybe there is a misunderstanding. She turned her brain around and continued, I heard that you were with Ms. Mu before, but now that something like this happened, are you worried that you will be punished by young Master Gu, and that Ms. Mu will be angered by your mother, so you deliberately let Kxi in taking the blame? Second young master, you must be kind. Guyan was about to die of anger. Mrs. Ian's words are too vicious. She alluded to Guyan to avoid punishment, so she directed and acted out a kidnapping scene by herself. Otherwise, the matter of hanging out with Mu Zi for several days and nights without going home would be brought to the front of Gu Liang and Gu's mother, and there was no way to explain it. At this time, Tongwu brought old Zhao Zi out from the back room, pushed him into the courtyard and knelt down. Guyan pointed at old Zhao Zi, all the witnesses have been seized, and you are still spitting people out. It is true that like a daughter, like a mother, one is vicious than the other. We don't know this person at all, Mrs. Lan said. At this time, a soft female voice came from outside. It's all here. Mu Zi held an apricot flower in his hand, and walked in unhurriedly. When Guyan saw her, it was as if he had met the backbone, and immediately said, Mu Zi, they don't admit it? Gu Liang glanced at his younger brother indifferently, but Guyan didn't notice it, and was full of anger waiting for Mu Zi to get justice for him. It is really rare to be so convinced by the devil king Gu Shao. The corner of Gu Liang's mouth curled into an inaudible smile, and his gaze fell softly on the girl in front of him. The warm sun shone on her face, her skin was white and delicate, with a healthy rosy glow, and she held a long apricot tree branch in her hand, on which 7 or 8 pink apricot flowers bloomed. Not as cute as her. It seems that every time we meet, she can surprise people. Gu Liang's heart rushed into a stream of heat. It's a pity, she is Hua Rong's woman. Thinking of it this way, my heart, which was just warmed up a little bit, became cold again. Mu Zi took the flowers and walked into the courtyard with a smile, and saw Lan Kexin and Mrs. Lan. She didn't know Mrs. Lan, but Lan Kexin knew her very well. Mu Zi smiled and said, Miss Lan, why are you here? Lan Kexin saw Mu Zi smiling at Yan, carefree, but she didn't know that her plan had completely failed. Guyan was fine, which surprised her, but Mu Zi was fine, so Lan Kexin could no longer restrain the overwhelming hatred in her heart. The anger that burst out in her eyes wished to tear Mu Zi to pieces. Burn to ashes. Step into mud. Lan Kexin's original intention was to take revenge. She can't see Mu Zi getting better in front of her. Mrs. Lan held Lan Kexin's arms tightly, and argued, My Kexen heard that the second young master had an accident, so she came here to help. Who knew that kindness would be treated as a donkey's liver and lungs? Knock the shit out of the pot. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 504. Guyan's face was livid with anger. Obviously the witness certificate is here, but the other party has left nothing behind. It's so annoying. I smiled and asked, Miss Lan is a weak woman, can she help with this kidnapping case? It's really surprising. Ms. Lan raised her head proudly, and said, my Kexen will inherit the family business in the future. The perfume industry requires an extremely sensitive sense of smell. Kexen smelled the scent of apricot blossoms left on the blackmail letter, so we found this place. What blackmail letter? I asked, can I have a look? Gu Liang glanced at Tongwu. Tongwu immediately took out the blackmail letter and handed it to I. I looked at it and said, isn't this the letter I asked someone to print in the printing shop? She took it close to the tip of her nose and sniffed it, and said with a smile, I can't smell the fragrance of flowers except for the smell of ink. Miss Lan is really amazing, she can smell the fragrance of flowers from the paper in the printing shop. Ms. Ian's body shook as if she had been hit hard, and she almost fainted. How so? The blackmail letter you are talking about is this one. I took out another folded piece of paper from her coat pocket, sniffed it. Well, this one seems to have a scent. Miss Lan, you smell again. As he spoke, he handed the blackmail letter to Lan Kexen. Lan Kexen didn't reach out to take it, her lips were pale and her eyes were scarlet, staring straight at Musa. You bitch, Lan Kexen suddenly went berserk and rushed towards Musa. You're going to die. Musa had expected her to be like this a long time ago, so she dodged swiftly, and suddenly a few tall men in black rushed out from behind, knocking Lan Kexen to the ground. Ms. Lan screamed in horror. Only then did everyone know that the Huo family was there. Lan Kexen wanted to curse, but someone gagged her mouth with a rag that had been wiped in the farmyard. Ms. Lan was also tied up tightly, waiting to be released. Sophistry is meaningless. Lan Kexen can smell the fragrance of apricot blossoms from a piece of plain white paper, which is enough to explain everything. If it wasn't the mastermind behind the scenes, how would he know that he was in Xingnan village? Lan Kexen was pinned to the ground, half of her face was pressed against the cold mud, tears rolled down from her red eyes and flowed into the mud. Her eyes were still fixed on Musa, like a sharp sword, wishing to pierce Musa. Musa was too lazy to look at her, she greeted Gu Liang and Guyan, then turned and left. The rest will naturally be handled by someone, so she doesn't need to worry about it. Outside the farmyard, there was a black luxury car parked. Musa smiled and sat in, stretched out the flower branch to the man's eyes and waved it. Isn't it pretty? Musa asked. Murong Cheng said with disgust, take it away, there are bugs on it. Will there be bugs? Musa was stunned for a moment, then took a closer look, and saw that there were really a few inconspicuous tiny caterpillars among the petals. Musa. It felt like the whole hand holding the apricot branch was numb. Open the window. A girl's suppressed cry sounded in the car, and then the window opened, and an apricot blossom was quickly thrown out. Just when Gu Liang walked to the gate of the farmyard, apricot blossoms fell at his feet. Gu Liang raised his eyes, met Murong Cheng's eyes in the car, and smiled elegantly. Murong Cheng's deep eyes immediately revealed a sharp edge. A branch of red apricot came out of the wall. This omen is really bad. Who told you to litter? Murong Cheng scolded Musa with a cold face. Musa was wiping his hands with a tissue, and gave him an angry look. It's not because you said there are bugs. Murong Cheng. Then he told her coldly, don't litter next time. Musa curled her lips, feeling that he was baffled. The car drifted away and slowly disappeared on the winding mountain road. Gu Liang looked down at the apricot blossoms at his feet, and sighed slightly. When a flower blooms, it must be folded straight, but, a famous flower has its own owner. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 505. Gu Liang lit a cigarette outside. After a while, Gu Yan helped Gu's mother out. Witnessing the sinister intentions of the mother and daughter of the Lan family, Gu's mother has calmed down from her anger, but she still has lingering fears when she recalls the whole incident. Gu Yan asked, "Brother, Miss Mu is gone." Gu Liang nodded and glanced at him. "Thanks to her this time, I will take you to thank her personally some other day." Gu Yan nodded again, and said with a smile, it should. After the matter was over, the three left Xingnan village. Old Zhao Zi was taken away by the police, but the mother and daughter of the Lan family were left behind. This is probably an unwritten rule. The criminals who offend the four major families must first let them vent their anger. In the yard, Wang Zhan and Tong Wu couldn't reach an agreement on how to deal with Lan Kexin. "Guard Tong, this woman bribed the kidnappers to ruin my wife. I must take her away, otherwise I won't be able to deal with Master Rong," Wang Zhan said. Tong Wu looked kindly. "Xiao Wang is in charge, my second young master has been frightened so much, we can't just let it go. If you take him away, we can't justify it here. Lan Kexin is undoubtedly the mastermind. As for Mrs. Lan, maybe she conspired behind the scenes, or maybe it was just to protect her daughter. I am afraid that the real reason will not be known until the 50-year-old woman that old Zhao Zi talked about shows up, so no one on both sides is in a hurry to attack Mrs. Lan." After a stalemate for a while, Wang Zhan sighed and discussed with Tong Wu, "How about we have half of each of us, okay?" Tong Wu was stunned for a moment, not understanding what half was. Wang Zhan asked him, "Do you want the top half or the bottom half? The left half or the right half?" Tong Wu. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Wang Zhan only assumed that he agreed, gestured to his subordinates, and said, "Let's go left and right, leave half for Tong Guanxi, and work quickly. Finish it early and go back to dinner early." Two men seemed to be used to this kind of work, dragged Lan Kexin up, tied her hands to a tree in the yard, and then, one of them took a sharp knife, and slashed down the knife like killing a pig, cut open broken belly. Mrs. Lan watched her daughter being cut in half in front of her eyes, screaming in terror. Tong Wu didn't expect to see such a bloody scene, so he frowned slightly. But the head was not easy to deal with. After a dozen times of chopping with a knife, the head could not be split in half. In the end, Wang Zhan was discouraged, and said irritably, "Forget it, let's save more for Tong Guanxi." There was still a hint of charity in his tone. In the end, they chopped the cut half into several pieces, put them in burlap bags, and said they would take them to feed the crocodiles. "Actually, we are very gentle. We throw the whole thing into the crocodile pond. It is convenient and clean. Brothers don't have to worry about it. But I am worried that you will not be able to deal with business when you go back, so I put in a little effort and keep half of it." Wang Zhan took a photo before leaving. He patted Tong Wu on the shoulder and explained. Tong Wu didn't understand. Throwing it into the crocodile pond had something to do with being gentle? When Wang Zhan left with his people, Tong Wu's subordinates came over tremblingly and asked him, "Steward, the remaining half, how to deal with it?" Tong Wu sighed irritably, and said, "Go dig a hole on the mountain and bury it. It's bloody, so I can't bring it in front of young Master Gu." "Then, where's Mrs. Lan?" the subordinate asked again. Mrs. Lan was so frightened that she fainted when she witnessed her daughter being dismembered. "I guess I've gone crazy with fright. It's useless to keep it. Send it back first," Tong Wu said. This chapter is a bit heavy-handed. The male protagonist is indeed too dark, and the female protagonist is urgently needed to purify it. This will not happen again in the future. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 506. After Tongwu finished his work, he asked someone to clean up the farmyard, left a hush money to the owner of the farmhouse, and then drove back to Qingjiang City. After returning, he explained the ending of the matter to Gu Liang in detail, and mentioned Wang Zhan's actions. Tongwu couldn't help but said, "I always heard that the new head of the Huo family used inhuman methods, but today is really eye-opening. Although the matter was done by Wang Zhan, it must have been Huo Rong's instruction." Looking at Wang Zhan's actions, he knew that they had done many similar things. Gu Liang smiled slightly, and said, "He is not from the Huo family, and he is young. Naturally, he must rely on blood to establish his prestige, otherwise how can he secure this position?" After speaking, there was a pause, and the smile on his face deepened. Gu Liang continued, "Huo Rong must be very angry, and manager Xiao Wang is afraid that he will not be relieved. Otherwise, if it is an ordinary kidnapper, why bother dismemberment? Thinking about it this way, there is a kind of barbaric violence that slaughters the world for women." Gu Liang smiled and shook his head, "He's too rude." Tong Wudao, old Zhao Zi explained that the person who paid the money ordered them to take turns to spoil Miss Mu, especially one of them got a dirty disease, so he had to spoil it a few more times. Wang Zhan was afraid that Miss Mu would be angry. "Did you hide this matter, Carrie?" Gu Liang frowned. "Lan Kexin is really relentless. She died just like that. I'm really happy, but Mrs. Lan doesn't know how to deal with it." Tongwu said, "I have asked someone to send Mrs. Lan back. Now that she is crazy, she should not be able to escape. When will you deal with it? Just say hello. Don't worry, go back and ask what second young master means." Gu Liang was not interested in dealing with such matters, but felt that his younger brother should also practice, otherwise he would be tricked next time. Mrs. Lan was thrown at the gate of Ian's outer courtyard. She seemed to have been greatly frightened, her bloodshot eyes were full of horror, she couldn't even stand up, and almost rolled back home. The servants were startled when they saw her like this, and immediately a servant called Lan Kexin's father, Lan Bin, and said, "Sir, please come back and have a look. Something happened to your wife." Lan Bin was in the company, and rushed home immediately after receiving the call. Seeing Mrs. Lan curled up madly in the corner of the room, he was startled and angry, and he shouted at the servant, "What's going on?" The servant was also very innocent, and replied, "I don't know, a car came suddenly just now, drove to the gate of the outer courtyard, and threw the wife down." Lan Bin was horrified, and the first thought in his mind was, a business competitor used indecent means to intimidate him. He immediately wanted to call the police. When Mrs. Lan saw him, she crawled over excitedly, hugged Lan Bin's leg tightly and cried, "Husband! Husband! Something happened to Kexin. You want to avenge our daughter." Lan Bin's heart skipped a beat, something happened to his daughter. He immediately closed the door, so that the servants outside would not hear, helped Mrs. Lan up and asked, "What happened? Where is Kexin?" "Kexin is dead," Mrs. Lan cried bitterly, "Kexin was chopped into pieces by them. My daughter! My daughter died so badly." "Who did it?" Lan Bin's chest heaved violently, he lost his beloved daughter, and he wished he could tear his enemy into pieces. "It's Gu Liang," Mrs. Lan cried, "and the Huo family. The Huo family's steward Xiao Wang and the steward Tong of the Gu family are all murderers." Lan Bin was stunned. He seemed to be hit by a heavy hammer, his ears were buzzing, and his mind was blank. How could this be? How could his wife, his daughter, provoke such a terrifying two families. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 507. Mrs. Lan has gone crazy and is incoherent. She only remembered the bloody and brutal scenes in front of her, she forgot who the Huo family was, and also forgot who the Gu family was, crying and calling for her husband to avenge her daughter. Lan Ben captured enough information from her intermittent narration to piece together a complete incident. His heart seemed to have fallen into a hole in the ice, covered with icy shards, the chill hit him in waves, and even his legs and feet became weak. He suddenly felt a sense of collapse. With such two families, is there still a way for the Lan family to survive? Losing the family may not be able to quell the other party's anger, maybe the family is ruined to end, the Lan family is over, and Lan Ben can't live anymore. He worked hard to develop perfume formulas, solicited investment everywhere, worked hard to start a business, and finally had his own perfume kingdom, but it was completely destroyed because of this mother and daughter. Lan Ben felt that he was too wronged. He is so pitiful. What did he do wrong? At this time, Lan Ben no longer had any thoughts of revenge, he just wanted to save his life. Mrs. Lan was still hugging his leg and talking crazy, no longer the dignity and grace of the past. Lan Ben looked at her, both hating her and pity her. He took a deep breath, took the pillow from the bed, and pressed it on Mrs. Ian's face, with tears streaming down his eyes, he murmured, "Don't blame me, what's the point of living in your current state? If you fall into the hands of those people, it will only make life worse than death. Better to die. As long as you die, maybe the Lan family can survive." The next day, news spread that Mrs. Ian's family had died suddenly in the emergency room. Many relatives of Ian's family came, and Lan Ben's mother also came all the way from her hometown. Although she didn't like her daughter-in-law, she still cried and shouted at the funeral. Everyone asked where Lan Kexin went, her mother died, why didn't she see her daughter in mourning? Lan Ben didn't even know where his daughter's body was. Even if he knew, he didn't dare to collect the body. Do you want him to go to the Huo family and the Gu family to ask for someone? Lan Ben explained that Lan Kexin ran away from home, and Mrs. Lan was so anxious that she died in the emergency department. Everyone has heard about Lan Kexin being stripped naked not long ago. When a girl encounters this kind of thing, she feels ashamed and embarrassed, and it is reasonable to run away angrily, but it is too unfilial to cause her mother to die of illness. At the funeral, it was inconvenient for everyone to talk about it because of their sympathy, but they discussed it in private, accusing Lan Kexin of being willful and unfilial. Muzi also knew about this. Although she didn't go out of her way to inquire, Zhuangjia is a small trumpeter, and all news will be passed on to her. Lan Kexin herself is a student of Gray, and when something happens to her family, Zhuangjia knows immediately. Muzi missed a week of class and was writing to catch up with homework. After receiving a call from Zhuangjia, she was very surprised. "You mean, Lan Kexin ran away from home and drove her mother to death?" "That's right," Zhuangjia said confidently, "the source of my news is absolutely reliable. Her mother is going to have a funeral in 2 days, and everyone is wondering if Lan Kexin can come back before the funeral. Otherwise, it would be really disrespectful." Muzi. She thought to herself, Mrs. Lan might commit suicide in fear of guilt, but Lan Kexin wouldn't be dead, would she? She bit the tip of the pen, a little worried. "I wanted to call Murongcheng to ask about it, but felt that Murongcheng's mouth was always mean, and maybe he was busy now." Muzi called Wang Zhan directly. Wang Zhan was very surprised, he answered the phone and said, "Miss Mu, are you looking for Master Rong?" "No." Muzi pondered for a while, then asked him, "There are rumors outside that Lan Kexin is missing." "No. That's the Lan family wanting face, Lan Kexin has already gone to jail," Wang Zhan replied. Muzi was suspicious. Really, you guys didn't do anything to her, did you? How is it possible? Miss Mew, we are legal and good citizens. If such a thing happens, of course we will hand it over to the police station. He 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 he. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mew Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HhandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 508. Wang Zhan never mentioned the matter of lynching, and he never dared to admit it. Others don't know it, but he knows it all too well. Ms. Mew looks like a little girl, but she is actually a righteous and dignified prosecutor. The thing she dislikes the most is breaking the law knowingly. Every time Master Wrong mentioned her, he would be extremely disgusted, saying that she was pedantic, stubborn, stupid, naive, and often possessed by the Virgin Mary. After being scolded like this, he still loves him so much that he has to pick up the corpse in a hurry, and insists on changing his fate against the sky. Wang Zhan didn't dare to say it, but he was thinking in his heart, did the Honorable Master Wrong grow a whole body of cheekbones? I just dared to think about it secretly. Muzi called to ask about Lan Kexin. Wang Zhan took care of it, and turned around to report to Murong Cheng immediately. Murong Cheng is receiving several influential uncles in the Huo family. These few are not hostile forces, but people who have recognized Murong Cheng's status. They are old and don't care much about fighting and killing. In the past few years with Murong Cheng, they have received a lot of dividends and their lives are comfortable. Now that everyone is calming down, we should strike while the iron is hot and settle the matter between you and Xiaolin. Lest those people use your identity as an excuse to find fault, one of the uncles suggested. Another echoed, that should be the case. After all, what everyone is afraid of is that the Huo family's property will fall into the hands of people with a foreign surname in the future. As long as you and Xiaolin have a child, and let the child's surname be Huo, the matter will be solved. Murong Cheng smiled and asked, Uncle, do you think Xiaolin and I will have children? The other party choked, obviously also thinking of Huolin's distinctive face. Sigh, it's too reluctant. I've already discussed the matter with Huolin about the child. Murong Cheng smiled lightly, with a handsome and dignified demeanor. To put it bluntly, I'm just protecting what he deserves for Huo Zheng. In the future, the Huo family's property will only be handed over to the Huo family, you can rest assured. The uncles exchanged glances with each other. Wrong, we can rest assured of what you do. After talking about things, they got up and left. Before leaving, he finally told Murong Cheng, brother is over 90 years old, as long as you get his approval, this matter will be more than half done. Wrong, you have done a lot for the Huo family these years, we will all see your hard work in my eyes. If those ungrateful people are really allowed to sit in the position of patriarch, the few of us are not convinced. The eldest brother of the uncles, that is, the previous head of the old family. Murong Cheng can be killed if others refuse to accept it, but if the old patriarch refuses to accept it, it will have a great impact on Murong Cheng's reputation in the Huo family. Moreover, the head of the old family is Huo Zheng's biological father, so it is impossible for Murong Cheng to take action against the old family. What the uncle said was not only a show of loyalty, but also a suggestion. Murong Cheng sent them away with a smile. Wang Zhan waited for them all to leave before coming in. Murong Cheng sat on the sofa, poured himself half a glass of whiskey, and took 2 sips in a leisurely manner. What's the matter? He asked. Wang Zhan quickly replied, Miss Mew called just now and asked us how to deal with Lan Kexin. Murong Cheng raised his eyebrows and asked, how did you answer? Wang Zhan's face was almost bursting with laughter. I said I sent it to the police station, with a smug tone. Idiot. Murong Cheng's eyes dimmed, and he frowned. You should say that you were sent to the police station by the Gu family. Wang Zhan was stunned for a moment, and then he understood, and suddenly realized, Master Wrong, you are still taller. You are brilliant. Even if the lie is exposed in the future, it will be the people of the Gu family who did it, and it has nothing to do with them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 509. Wang Zhan boasted that he had followed Cheng for these years, and he had already learned 80% of Cheng's insidious, cunning, vicious, and cruel, but when it came to unlimited and shameless, he still felt that his skills were not enough. As expected of Master Rong, it's amazing. When Wang Zhan lamented that he didn't study hard enough, Cheng was melancholy. What has to be faced will be faced sooner or later. Although he is very resistant, the meeting between Mu Zi and Huolin must be put on the agenda. Many things must be discussed face to face before they can be explained clearly. Just thinking of Huolin gave Cheng a headache. Huo Zheng is a strong man, how could he have a younger sister like Huolin? In the afternoon Cheng called home and told Bai Wei to go back for dinner in the evening. Go back and eat, just go back and eat, why do you call on purpose? He didn't realize this before. Mu Zi felt that he seemed to be implying, wait, I will come back to talk to you at night. If you didn't mention it, that's fine. Now that her son mentioned it, Bai Wei felt that she should cook more dishes. There are a lot of dishes to be prepared. Mu Zi helps to wash and peel the vegetables, which can help Bai Wei share some of the burden. While busy in the kitchen, Mu Zi asked Bai Wei what kind of food Cheng likes to eat. Bai Wei thought for a while, but shook her head. Your brother hasn't had much interest in food since he was a child. He will eat whatever is in the house, and he is not picky about food. After she finished speaking, she recalled some past events, and she couldn't help showing sadness, and sighed, actually, how can a child not be picky about food? When he was young, there were a few dishes he liked to eat, but every time he picked up a few more chopsticks, I admire the wife will say some nasty things, and the more times, he will not eat much. Later, I started to start another fire here, and everyone eats separately, and life will be easier. Mu Zi held back, couldn't help it, and asked her confusion all along, Mom, since Mu is so mean to us, why do we still live here? Actually, we can move out to live. Your brother has the blood of the Mu family on his body. He is the young master of the Mu family. If I take him away, it will be difficult to tell his identity in the future. Bai Wei frowned, and said sadly, I don't want to admire the family's money, and I don't want to admire the family's power, but I don't want him to follow me into a child of unknown origin. He will never be able to behave in a dignified manner for the rest of his life. Bai Wei has her own principles. At the beginning, Mu didn't want to admit Cheng's identity, and even forced Bai Wei to take her son for a paternity test. Even if Bai Wei is bullied to death, she still has to keep her son in the Mu family, otherwise, it is very likely that people will think that giving birth to a wild species is not tolerated by the Mu family and will be kicked out of the house. If Bai Wei doesn't leave, Mu can't insist, because the deceased Mr. Mu still has brothers and sisters, and they won't watch Mr. Mu's women and children wander outside. So Mu could only bully and humiliate Bai Wei and Bai Wei's two children in different ways. Bai Wei didn't have the ability to fight back, so she had to endure. She felt that every day was suffering, and one day, she really got over it. That mean woman died in a car accident. Bai Wei is a kind person and would not easily curse people to death, but when she heard the news of her death, she was really relieved. Bai Wei recalled the past, gently patted her daughter's head if she had feelings, and said softly, Zizi has also suffered these years, and you should be a spoiled daughter, but you have to suffer with me. Oh, it's Mom who's sorry for you. Mu Zi was surprised. Hey, were my parents rich? Bai Wei's face was slightly stiff, and she realized that she had said something wrong, and said awkwardly, "I don't know too well, it should be pretty good. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again." Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 510. Musei. With Bai Wei's appearance, she obviously knows something. Why didn't she say it? If she didn't want to say it, Musei couldn't force her to ask. Forget it, anyway, she has no interest in her life experience. According to Qiao Jingjia, her biological mother is dead. As for her father, who has ignored her for so many years, he must be a scumbag, and there is no need to recognize her father. Musei quickly put this matter behind her, but Bai Wei was always anxious, always worried that Musei would ask more questions, and she was not allowed to help Musei in the kitchen, and told her to go to the living room to watch TV. Musei had no choice but to turn around and leave. She was bored and changed several TV channels, doing nothing. Unexpectedly, I saw Musening's face appearing in the economic channel news. Musening was young and handsome. Among the fat CEOs, he was exceptionally handsome and eye-catching, and he was also favored by media reporters. He may not be the most successful entrepreneur, but he is definitely the most sought after by the public. This is an era of looking at faces. Even a pig butcher, as long as he is handsome enough, he will be on the news, the most handsome pig butcher. Speaking of which, Musening hasn't come to him recently. Has he figured it out and decided to let go? Musei looked at it, and couldn't help feeling emotional. Under the same roof, Musening was only half a year older than Cheng, but his life circumstances were completely different. Musening is the proud son of heaven. He has received the best education since he was a child, and enjoys the best network resources in his family. Mrs. Mu has taken care of him meticulously. Looking at Cheng again, tisk tisk tisk, how pitiful, every extra bite of food at the dinner table will be ridiculed. With Bai Wei's character, it is probably impossible to fight for any resources for her son. Just as she was feeling emotionally, a sinister male voice rang in her ear, "Have you not watched enough at home? Why don't you turn on the TV to watch it?" Musei didn't react, and blurted back, "I just think that it's easy to look fat when on camera." There was a sudden shock in my heart. Musei jumped up from the sofa in an instant, and when she turned her head she saw Cheng standing behind the sofa. She screamed in fright, "Aren't you making a sound when you walk? You scared me to death." Cheng said in a strange way, "I want to walk and make noise, so I won't disturb you from admiring others." "You're crazy." Musei angrily threw away the pillow in his arms, turned and went upstairs. Cheng grabbed her wrist and asked her, "Where are you going?" Musei replied angrily, "Find a quiet place, and appreciate others." "Are you angry again?" Cheng held his wrist tightly. Musei rolled his eyes back at him, "It's not because of you." Cheng. "It seems to be the case." After thinking for a while, he carried Musei upstairs. Musei twisted her body and asked him, "Why?" Cheng said without shame, "I'll give you a chance to appreciate me." Musei thought, "Can I refuse?" After going upstairs, entering the room, and closing the door, naturally, there was another entanglement. Soon it was time for dinner. Cheng didn't go too far, just caressed his soft waist, and kissed one after another on the flawless white skin, lingering and lingering. Musei nestled in his arms, eyes slightly closed, delicate and ruddy face, shy and naive. Cheng thought she was cute, so he kissed her on the lips again, playing with the thick long black hair with his fingers, unable to sink. For some reason, it suddenly occurred to her mind that if Musei hadn't been alert and carried a gun that day, she would have been ruined by those villains by now. Hateful. He began to regret it a little, and felt that Lan Kexan's death was too cheap, and she should be sent to the torture room to experience all the instruments of torture. It hurts, what are you doing?" Mu Ziyi murmured delicately. Subconsciously angry, Murong Chang clenched his fingers and pulled Mu Ziyi's hair. He immediately let go, rubbed her scalp again, and said softly, Zizi, I have something to tell you.